Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Everyone's well settled? Okay. So, yesterday's class was fine? You all understood the concepts, whatever we discussed? Yes? Okay. So, we will be extending what we did yesterday. We'll be extending those topics today. And we did the structural components of an ecosystem yesterday. That includes what all? Biotic and abiotic factors. Okay. Today we will be doing the functional concepts or the functions of an ecosystem. What all services an ecosystem provides. All right. So, what is an ecological niche? We did this yesterday. What is an ecological niche? Huh? We'll do this in the break. Okay? Please. I'll take it in the break. Okay? All right. So, we were discussing niche yesterday, right? What is a niche? If habitat is the address of an organism, niche is the job description. That means the role it plays. Okay? Now, for example, you all have some role to play in your family, in the society, in the classroom. All right? You all have some role to play. Now, right now, let's say you're all being very naughty kids. Okay? Right? What would have been an ideal student? Ideal student क्या होता? Disciplined or consistent, sincere, would have come to the class on time, punctual, honest, would have noted down all the things properly, right? Would have clarified his or her doubts after the class. And so there is something called an ideal situation, right? That means that would have been the ideal role played by a student. But what you're actually doing, okay, what you're actually doing is something that is your current state, is what you're really doing, okay? Similar concept is applied in an ecosystem. There is something called the fundamental niche of an organism. That means the ideal scenario. That means all the range of conditions or all the range of activities that that species can perform in the ecosystem. And realized means that what he or she is actually doing. To give you an example, let's say there is a monkey. Okay, monkey likes to eat what? Bananas. Okay, now monkey is in a forest where there is a range of fruits. Monkey can also survive on a papaya, monkey can also survive on a mango, so on and so forth. But let's say monkey's preference is banana and he's only eating bananas, for example, theoretically or hypothetically. Okay, now the fundamental niche of the monkey would be all the range of food substances that it can eat. It can eat. But realized would be what the monkey is actually eating because of his preferences. Okay? Same concept is applied to all species. So there are two types of niches. One is realized niche and the other is fundamental niche. The scope of fundamental niche is large. That means it's the range of activities, it's the range of food, everything. हर चीज का जो एक range हो सकता है, temperature से लेके उसके food तक, everything, all the functions that it performs in an ecosystem, all the range of conditions. We did this yesterday, that the range of conditions of an organism also determine its niche, because it will survive, it will stay in that kind of habitat. So all those things that are ideal, which are theoretically possible, are covered under fundamental niche. And those which are actually done by the organism, that is realized niche. Okay, so please note down the differences between realized niche and fundamental niche. You're not able to see? Oh, so sorry. Realized niche is small and the fundamental niche is large. Okay, In a fundamental situation, in a niche, there is an ideal condition. There is no competition, there is no other species, there is no other organism which is vying for the same sources. Okay, so that means there is absolutely no competition. The monkey is free, it can go and eat whatever he wants. But in a realized niche, in the actual environment, what is happening? Someone else is maybe taking the bananas, so the monkey has to go to the mango maybe. So realized is what is actually happening on ground on account of competition, on account of limiting factors. But fundamental means the range of conditions that it can utilize to survive. I'll tell you. That means this is taking competition into account. And this is considering the fact that there is no competition in the ecosystem. It can do anything. Okay. None? Okay, so just write down the definition. Fundamental niche. Has everyone finished? Okay, take your time. Edge effect. I'll tell you after the class. Come to me in the break, okay? Done? Everyone's done? Okay, please note, write down. Fundamental niche is the entire set of conditions. Fundamental niche is the entire set of conditions. Fundamental niche is the entire set of conditions under which an animal can survive and reproduce itself. Realized niche is the set of conditions actually used by a given animal after interaction with other species has been taken into account. Okay. So if I have to say, let's say, what is the food niche of a squirrel, what would you say? Nuts and seeds and other things that it eats, small insects, fruits, you know. So that's the range of things that the squirrel can eat. Similarly, I can divide the niche of a species into different categories. I can say the habitat niche. So habitat niche of a squirrel would be, let's say, a tree where it will build its nest. In the case of marmot, it would be a burrow, correct? A food niche would be the range of food that it can eat. Reproductive niche would be the range of conditions that it requires for reproduction. For example, a specific season, right? All the plants and animals have specific reproductive seasons. So season, the temperature, the place, and of course a mating partner. So this is the reproductive niche. All the conditions that are required to fulfill this need of the animal. Physical and chemical niche. It will include the range of conditions in which the animal will want to survive. So like for example, temperature, availability, oxygen, availability of precipitation, so on and so forth. So all these can be divided into fundamental and realized. So एक squirrel का fundamental क्या है? Niche of food niche and realized food niche. Like a monkey's fundamental food niche would be range of things that it can eat, and realized food niche would be what it actually eats. Okay, depending on availability of resources, depending on the competition in the ecosystem, depending on other limiting factors. Okay, so this is a concept of fundamental and realized niche. Answer this question. Both 1 and 2? C. Anybody who differs? No? Right, that's right. The correct answer is C, both 1 and 2. Very good. All right, you have understood the concept. So now we are starting with the topic of functions of an ecosystem. What exactly are the functional components of an ecosystem? So what according to you does the ecosystem do? We discussed this briefly yesterday. It gives us nutrients, it gives us energy, right? So note down, the functions of an ecosystem can be broadly categorized into these three categories: energy flow, nutrient cycling, and ecological succession. The most important thing you have to understand here is that energy में cycling word नहीं use किया हुआ है. We discussed this yesterday, that energy is unidirectional. It does not come back, whereas nutrients are cycled. Okay, so energy flow and nutrient cycling. Okay, please write down the function of an ecosystem. The function of an ecosystem is a broad and dynamic system. It can be divided under three heads. First is energy flow. Second is nutrient cycling. ब्रैकेट में लिख लेना बायोजियोकेमिकल साइकिल्स. And third is ecological succession. Okay, so let's start with energy flow. What is energy? How would you define energy? Ability to do work. It gives you the ability to do work. Okay, or cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. Okay, or so energy allows all metabolic activities to take place in the ecosystem. Write down, energy is the basic force. Energy is the basic force responsible. Energy is the basic force responsible for all metabolic activities. The flow of energy is from the producers to the top consumers to the top consumers in a unidirectional way. In a unidirectional way. Okay. So yeah, I think you all have studied this in schools. What is this? This is a food chain, right? Food chain tells about the who eats who. Simple. Very simple. Who eats who. Okay. So this, the first level of the food chain includes autotrophs. What are autotrophs? Yes, organisms which prepare their own food. So give me an example. Plants, trees, right? Algae, right? That means they can produce their own food. Now, these are also known as primary producers. These are also known as primary producers. And the next level, that means animals which eat these autotrophs, they are known as primary consumers. Okay, so don't get confused. Sometimes students have a tendency to think primary producers के बाद secondary consumer आएगा. Secondary consumer नहीं आएगा. Consumer will be primary. Okay, so primary consumers. Primary consumers includes examples like herbivores. So some animals which are always dependent on plants. That means they are not carnivorous or they are not omnivores. They are classified as herbivores. So can I say omnivores will always be primary consumers? No. Omnivores can not always be primary consumers, but herbivores will always be primary consumers. Okay, then moving on to the next level, you have the third level. After primary consumer, you have a secondary consumer. Okay, after primary consumer, there is a secondary consumer. This will be a carnivore. This will be a carnivore. Can I say a secondary consumer can be an omnivore? Yes. Okay, a secondary consumer can be an omnivore. Why? Because omnivores eat both plants and animals. So यहाँ पे जो इस level पे होगा, that means he is eating another animal. So it can very well be an omnivore. So can I say an omnivore will be a primary consumer? Yes, an omnivore is what? Omnivore is somebody who eats also plants and animals. तो वो इस लेवल पे आएगा तो प्लांट्स खाएगा. If I place it at this level, that means in a specific food chain, that organism is eating an animal. But a herbivore in the food chain will always fall in the second level, always, right? Is this clear? But an omnivore can fall in any level, and a carnivore will fall always in any level other than the first two levels. Right? A carnivore will always fall in any level other than the first two levels. क्योंकि उसको तो animal खाना है, तो पहले animal तो आए food chain में. ठीक है? Is this clear? So understand how you are linking primary producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. Okay? And how you are linking that with autotrophs, herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. So we can frame statements. A question can be framed on this line, that an omnivore will always be a secondary consumer. Is this correct? An omnivore will always be a secondary consumer. No. An omnivore can be a secondary consumer. Yes. All right, good. Note this down. Just don't draw, please, obviously. Just note down this and this. If you want, you can write the examples as names, but you don't have to draw them. Okay, what is the opposite of autotroph? Heterotrophs. Good. Okay, someone is asking online, ma'am, is amoeba an autotroph? Muskan is asking, is amoeba an autotroph? Is amoeba an autotroph? No. Amoeba does not make its own food. In fact, engulfs other food particles through pseudomonas. That is the kind of finger-like projections that it makes. It can take any shape. So amoeba is not an autotroph. Okay, I'm coming to energy flow again. I have just explained the concept of food chain here. We are yet to discuss how energy will be transferred. Okay, it will be going from which direction? From primary producers to top carnivores. Okay, online someone is asking what is the difference between primary and secondary carnivore. A primary carnivore will be consumed by a secondary carnivore. So हम कितने कर सकते हैं? How many levels can we go up to? We have primary producer तो एक ही है. There is no secondary producer, right? There will always be one primary producer. There will be a primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, quaternary consumer, और फिर कहाँ तक जाएंगे हम? We'll come to that in the context of energy flow. What happens in energy flow? Every consecutive trophic level, only 10% of the energy is transferred. We've all studied about it in school, the 10% energy rule. That is, only 10% of the energy is transferred. Now see this situation. If, let's say, just as a hypothetical situation, at this first trophic level, the primary producers, they are able to capture the sun's energy and let's say generate about 1000 kilowatt of energy, roughly, although energy in plants and animals is generated in the form of ATPs, adenosine triphosphate, okay? But anyway, this is just for your understanding, okay? 1000 kilowatt. Only 10% of this energy will go to the next organism, which is how much? 100 kilowatt. Then at the third level, when this energy is going, how much will go? 10 kilowatt. And then at the tertiary consumer level, how much will be left? Only 1 kilowatt. अब अगर हम इसके ऊपर भी जाएंगे, then it will mean 0.1 kilowatt. That means it will 0.01 kilowatt. So for species higher in the trophic level, they will have to eat more to gain the same amount of energy that species at a lower trophic level are getting. So it is not possible in nature. It is not possible in nature to have a very long food chain. Food chains are usually of 4 to 5 trophic levels only, so that the species can be satisfied. All right? Noted it down? सबने कर लिया? Okay. So please write. Energy flows through the trophic levels. Energy flows through the trophic levels from producers to higher trophic levels. From producers to higher trophic levels. There is some loss of energy. There is some loss of energy in the form of unusable heat. In the form of unusable heat at each trophic level. at each trophic level. Heat, unusable heat unusable मतलब जो यूज नहीं हुई. ओके, सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल ऐसा तो नहीं है कि इस ग्रास हॉपर ने लेट से एक प्लांट खाया, वो प्लांट की पूरी एनर्जी उसने एज इट इज असिमुलेट कर ली. ठीक है, दैट ग्रास हॉपर इज डूइंग सम रनिंग अराउंड. Okay, he's getting some work done, he's using that energy. Also some energy will be spent in maintaining the metabolic activities of the grasshopper in general. Uski body mein thermoregulation, some heat loss will also be there. So all that energy is dissipated in one way or the other, and only some amount of energy, that is 10% of the energy, is left for the third level species. So now when some other animal is eating that grasshopper, he or she only receives about 10% of that energy. Rest of the 90% is either used by the grasshopper or it is dissipated in the form of heat, which is not usable. Understood? Okay. Where were we? Last. At each trophic level, so that energy level decreases from the first trophic level upwards. मतलब फर्स्ट से डिक्रीज होना शुरू होती है और ऊपर जाते जाते और डिक्रीज होता जाता है. Okay, the trophic level interactions include three concepts. Food chain, food web, and ecological pyramids. Food chain, food web, and ecological pyramids. So food chain, everybody understands. How would you define a food chain? कैसे बोलोगे? If UPSC asks you what is a food chain, what will you write? Yes, absolutely right. But is it only energy? You are saying it describes the flow of energy when one organism consumes another organism. Is it only energy? It's also nutrients. Okay, so write down a sequence of organisms that feed on one another. A sequence of organisms that feed on one another form a food chain. That feed on one another form a food chain. Okay, this is a basic definition of food chain. Now tell me what exactly happens. Like हम जब ऊपर जा रहे थे, somebody said decomposers, right? So in nature everything is cyclical. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि अब यहाँ food chain खत्म होगी, there is an end to it. Something happens to that body after the organism dies also. So let's start with this. We have a grass which is a producer, which is a primary producer. Okay, the grass is eaten by the grasshopper, which is a primary consumer. Okay, and this grasshopper is eaten by a bird, which is a secondary consumer. Bird is eaten by a snake, which is a tertiary consumer. Okay, and ultimately ये थोड़ा maybe और लंबा हो गया, owl, snake को owl ने भी खा लिया, but ultimately what happens after that? Let's say the owl dies. Okay, owl is the apex predator, मतलब top carnivore. Owl dies, what happens after that? It gets decomposed in the soil. Okay, decomposition is done by two types of organisms. Decomposers, no, not bacteria. This is not the distinction we are talking about. decomposers and detritivores. Okay. So जब soil में any organic body or organic matter is there, it is decomposed by two types of organisms. One is decomposers, which includes animals, microorganisms like bacteria, fungi and all, very small ones, which break down the organic matter into its finer constituent parts. Okay, finer constituent parts. And the other are detritivores, which break down the organic matter into a, let's say, humus. What is humus? That organic matter, वो खाद जिसे बोलते हैं. So इसका example would be earthworm. Like an earthworm will decompose an organic body, but not exactly into its constituent parts, into a more readily absorbable form like humus. That is a khad. Okay. So this owl is decomposed, right, in the soil. It gets merged with the soil in whatever form. And then again that nutrition, the carbon which has come from the owl, the nitrogen which has come from the owl, जो भी उसकी body में elements थे, that have gone back into the soil after decomposition. And those elements are again picked up by the grass as a form of nutrition. So they are again going back. Now, I can see this food chain in two formats. First is when I start from here. That means grass is the first thing, and the first organism to eat something is the grass. Okay, that means a herbivore. I can also see this food chain in a different manner. I can see it from here. ये decomposed dead body है, okay, dead organic matter, and this is taken by the decomposer. So when I see this food chain from here, it becomes a detritus food chain. And when I see it from here, it becomes a grazing food chain. In nature, everything is going in cycles. It only depends how you are viewing it. Okay. So if I say the difference between grazing food chain and detritus food chain is the fact that the first one to consume is either a primary consumer or a decomposer, right? Grazing food chain mein, the first person to eat something else would be, here would be a herbivore or a primary consumer, and here would be a decomposer. So the grazing food chain starts from fresh green plants, and detritus food chain starts from dead organic matter. In nature, actually everything is going in circles, but this is just the way we categorize two different types of food chain. Is this understood? Right? Clear? Okay, please note down. Yeah. Decomposers are those organisms which which further divide the dead organic matter into its constituent parts. Now decomposers can be of two types, or that stage, that trophic level can have microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi, which are breaking it down into its absolute finer parts, or it can be decomposers like detrivores like earthworm, which is further dividing it into, let's say, humus-like substance. Okay? They are scavengers. They are scavengers. They would come somewhere in this kind of, वो food chain के थोड़ा सा बाहर हो जाते हैं. Okay, they will come. Vultures will be there, but you can call them, let's say, like a outright outlier of a food chain. Okay, scavengers come in a different category, but you can say vulture is a top predator. You can call it a top predator. At the end of the day, they're all eating by killing, right? But if you see the fact that it does not only kill, it also eats the dead remains. That's why they are scavengers. They are sometimes considered outside the realm of a normal food chain. Okay? Okay, please note down grazing food chain. Vultures, you talked about scavengers and parasites. ये दो हैं categories जिनको हम कई बारी normal food chain से अलग देखते हैं. All right? Grazing food chain. The consumers which start the food chain, the consumers which start the food chain, utilizing plants as their food, utilizing plants as their food, constitute the grazing food chain. Okay. Yes. हाँ, I'll come to that. I'll give you the definition also. इसमें लिखो grazing food chain में, for example, in terrestrial ecosystem, grass is eaten by the caterpillar. Grass is eaten by the caterpillar, which in turn is eaten by a bird. So you are starting with grass. Grass is eaten by a caterpillar and caterpillar is eaten by a bird. So in a grazing food chain, that means it starts with green plants, okay, or autotrophs. Detritus food chain. Detritus. I'll write down the spelling here. Detritus food chain. It starts from dead organic matter. It starts from dead organic matter of decaying, starts from dead organic matter of decaying, यानी कि सड़ा, yes, decaying organic matter or decaying animals and plants. I'll repeat. It starts from dead organic matter of decaying animal and plant bodies. It starts from dead organic matter of decaying animals and plant bodies, consumed by the microorganisms, and then to detritus feeding organisms, called detrivores. Detrivores या detritivores भी बोलते हैं. Detritivores. Okay, write down the definition of detritivores. Detritivores are heterotrophs. That obtain nutrition by consuming dead organic matter. Okay, now write down, while decomposers break down dead organic materials, detritivores such as earthworms, millipedes, M-I-L-I, M-I-double-L-I. मिलीपीड सेंटीपीड होता है ना, वही millipede, like earthworms, millipedes and termites. Like millipedes, earthworms and termites eat dead organisms and waste. Eat dead organisms and waste. Okay, I'll reiterate it. Let me just clean the board a bit. Okay, detritivores means earthworm. detritivores से हमेशा याद रखो earthworm. Okay, earthworm क्या करता है? earthworm क्या करता है? It directly eats small parts of the dead organic matter. जो भी decaying plant और animal body है उसको directly eat करता है and then excretes something. Okay, जो भी normal उसका physiological function है. That whatever it excretes becomes in the form of humus or it becomes in the form of, जिसे हम vermi composting में earthworms use करते हैं, right? So that becomes something which is more like a soil-like, which looks or feels more like soil. Okay, but in the case of decomposers include bacteria or fungi or microorganisms जो कि क्या करते हैं? They break down the dead organic matter to its molecular level. उसके molecular level तक उसको break down कर देते हैं. Okay, but earthworm is eating the small parts of the decaying plant or animal body. Now you have understood the difference. Sometimes people normally say decomposers and detritivores. They are not the same. There is a difference. The difference is earthworm. अब और मैं उसको easy कर देती हूँ. एक dead plant पड़ा है, ठीक है, dead plant body है. earthworm आएगा, उसका एक छोटा सा part खाएगा, okay, and उसको normally अपने digestive system में process करके it will give some excreta. That excreta has nutritional value, right, because of the nature of earthworm digestive system, and it becomes more like a humus-like thing. It is organic content but is in a decomposed, it's in a more processed form. Earthworm will do that. Bacteria will come to the same plant body. The bacteria will start breaking it down into its molecular level parts. This is the difference between detritivores and decomposers. Is this clear now? Okay. All right. Now we've talked about food chain. We've talked about two types of food chain. One is grazing food chain and the other is detritus food chain. A grazing food chain starts from plants, green grass, autotrophs, and a detritus food chain starts from a dead, decaying plant or animal body. This is clear? All right. Okay. Next, write down food web. We've done food chain. Now we've come to food web. See, this is an example of a detritus food chain. There is detritus. Detritus means decomposed organic matter. ठीक है, अब वो किस एक्सटेंट तक डिकम्पोज्ड है, प्लांट है, एनिमल बॉडी है जो कि बहुत डिकम्पोज हो चुका है, दैट इज नोन एज detritus. It is eaten by a earthworm. Earthworm is eaten by a mouse. So let's say that is a detritus food chain. Same thing, grazing food chain में एक cabbage है, cabbage को खाया caterpillar ने, caterpillar को खाया bird ने. So this is a grazing food chain. This is theoretical concept. Theoretically, we are understanding this on two bases. But what is happening in nature actually on ground? This is all going in a circle. They're all interlinked. That is why we are able to recycle nutrients. अगर यहीं तक होती grazing food chain ही होती, if only grazing food chain were there in nature, could we have ever processed the dead organic matter, plant or animal dead bodies? No. That's why we need this step of the food chain also, so that nutrient cycling can take place in an ecosystem. Understood? Okay. Chalo, let's talk about food web. Write down food web. A food web illustrates all possible transfers of energy and nutrients, all possible transfers of energy and nutrients among the organisms in an ecosystem. Whereas a food chain traces only one pathway of the food. Okay. So if I am telling you, I am talking about one ecosystem. Okay, there is one, let's say, grassland area. I am talking about that ecosystem. And I show you one food chain: grass, rabbit, and hawk. So what will you understand from it? That in this ecosystem, there is only grass, which is eaten by rabbits, and rabbits in turn are eaten by hawk. So you know only one source of food for each of these organisms, right? You know only one source. But if I show you in the form of a food web, that in that same ecosystem, there is grass, there is rabbit, there is mouse, there is grasshopper, then there are frogs, there is owl, there is fox, all sorts of other organisms. And I'm showing you all the interlinkages. That means now you know that the hawk has so many different alternatives to food. He is not just dependent on the rabbit. Okay, so in reality, of course, things are like this only. It's a food web. There is no single food chain. All ecosystems have food webs. But this is for our theoretical understanding that in a particular ecosystem, this is how the different food chains work. All right. Now, for example, if I say let's say in the rainy season, all the frogs disappear. So what will the hawk eat? The hawk will have to rely on food chains which does not include a frog. Correct? Sare frogs, let's say, pani mein chale gaye. Just example. So you know the hawk will rely on other food chains for its survival. Okay? That means a food web tells you that what are the alternatives that every species has in order to survive in an ecosystem. It tells you about the alternatives. And now, for example, let's say I say the mouse, all the mouse of that ecosystem are dead. Humne rat kill fek diya for whatever reasons. Okay, all the rats of that particular ecosystem are dead. So will it impact the hawk? Of course it will impact, because his options become so limited. He has to rely on other links. Okay, so every species that is removed from a food web, all the succeeding links that are there get affected. If I remove this grasshopper, there won't be enough grasshopper for the frog. There won't be enough for the bird. They will be under pressure. Okay, similarly, succeeding links will suffer. So if any one organism from the food web is removed, succeeding links suffer. Okay, so please write down. A food web provides more alternative for food. Okay. Okay, Anjali is asking, whereas food chain ke baad, it's written here. Please read this. It's written here. What comes whereas a food chain traces only one pathway of the food. Okay. If any of the intermediate food chain is removed, if any of the intermediate food chain is removed, the succeeding links are affected. The succeeding links are affected. It takes seasonal shifts into account. It takes seasonal shifts into account. So these are the advantages of showing the food system of a ecosystem in a food web as opposed to a food chain. अगर आप एक food chain में सारा दिखाओगे, you will not be able to show the seasonal shifts, you will not be able to show the different options or alternatives that a species has. So food web is a better illustrator than a food chain. Alright? Why? Because even if you show multiple food chains, even if I break down these food chains into singular food chains, that will still not tell you about the interdependencies. Alright? If you have to see the entire picture, a food web is the best way to illustrate food chains in a ecosystem. Clear? Okay. Now we come to the third and most important topic, that is the ecological pyramids. Ecological pyramids. Seasonal shifts means any availability or unavailability of food depending on the season. Okay. Ecological pyramids. The steps of trophic level expressed in a diagrammatic way, are referred to as the steps of trophic level expressed in a diagrammatic way are referred to as ecological pyramids. The base of the pyramid is usually producers or autotrophs. And the tip of the pyramid includes the top carnivore or the apex predator. Okay. Also write down this, the length of each bar represents the number of individuals okay, in the case of pyramid of numbers. Okay. So there are primarily three types of pyramids. Pyramid basic concept is that we want to understand that in a given ecosystem, producers के पास X, we are talking about any characteristic. So let's say how many producers are there? I'm talking about the number. In a pyramid of numbers, I will want to count the number of producers. So maybe in a let's say forest, I will want to count the number of trees. Okay, so in a pyramid of number, we talk about the counting, the number, the population. All right, I'll talk about the trees. Then at the second level, maybe I'm talking about the number of grasshoppers, caterpillars. That means all those organisms which are primary consumers, right? Primary consumers है, plants के just ऊपर primary consumers है. So I'm writing down the number, how many are there. Then on top of that, I am noting down the number of secondary consumers. ऐसे करते करते we are going to the top predators. So in a pyramid of numbers, we are doing this on the basis of number of individuals, that is the population. In a pyramid of biomass, we are doing the same thing, but we are not counting the number of individuals. We are calculating the dry weight of those organic bodies. At the end of the plants का एक dry weight होगा. Why we say dry weight? Because we don't want to include water. Okay, water हटा दिया. What is left is the actual mass of the body, that is dry weight. Okay. Similarly, we do it for primary producers. Similarly, we do it for secondary, primary consumers, and then we do it for secondary consumers. So in a pyramid of biomass, we are calculating the dry weight of the population. Okay, मतलब कितने organisms हैं और उनका dry weight कितना होगा. And in a pyramid of energy, we are calculating the energy at the first trophic level, the energy at the second trophic level, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now let's talk about pyramid of numbers. Normally, in a normal terrestrial ecosystem, the pyramid of numbers will be like this. It will be upright because plants का number usually ज़्यादा होगा as compared to, let's say, number of primary consumers. There will be more number of plants than grasshoppers, right? Similarly, more number of grasshoppers than frogs. Then only a species can survive, right? There will be more number of frogs than, let's say, snakes. Okay, so this is an upright pyramid of numbers where each succeeding level, at each succeeding trophic level, the number of organisms keeps getting less. Now there can be a situation, let's say I am considering one tree as an ecosystem. We discussed this yesterday, that ecosystem means perspective क्या है आपका. आपका home can be your exact address, it can be your city, it can be your country, it can be your planet Earth. So if I am considering one tree as an entire ecosystem, जिसमें कीड़े भी हैं, birds भी हैं, caterpillars भी हैं, सब कुछ है, and I am viewing this as one ecosystem, then what happens? How many plants are there? There is just one tree. Okay, maybe there is a situation in which there are n number of primary consumers, but secondary consumers are even more. Let's say this tree has lots of nests of these particular birds. कई बारी होता है ना, एक पेड़ somehow becomes the favorite of birds. There are lots and lots of nests, and maybe the primary consumers are smaller in number. So there can be a situation in nature when the pyramid of numbers is inverted. That means the producers in number, we are talking about the counting, population, in number is less than the primary consumers, which in turn is less than the secondary consumers. So this can happen, correct? So write down, please write down. Pyramid of numbers deals with the relationship between the numbers of primary producers and consumers of different levels, levels. Okay, so write down. First type is pyramid of numbers, which is upright. Upright pyramid of numbers. Upright. Okay, यानी कि सीधा है. Alright. Normally pyramid ऐसे ही होता है ना, base is heavy and then it keeps getting narrowed at the top. So upright pyramid of numbers. Okay, in this pyramid, the number of individuals decreases as we go from lower to higher trophic levels. As we go from lower to higher trophic levels. For example, in a grassland ecosystem. For example, in a grassland ecosystem. Okay, grassland ecosystem, if you count the number of grass, obviously grass will be much more than the other species, right? And succeedingly, the other trophic numbers will keep on reducing. Understood? Okay. Now write down pyramid of numbers inverted. Inverted pyramid of numbers. In this pyramid, the number of individuals increases from lower to higher trophic levels. From lower to higher trophic levels. For example, a forest with a few number of big trees. मतलब एक जंगल है जिसमें थोड़े पेड़ हैं लेकिन बड़े बड़े हैं. ओके, सो दे कैन होस्ट अदर ऑर्गेनिजम्स बट देयर नंबर इज लेस. ऑलराइट, क्लियर? इसी का ही एक कॉरलरी है. ओके, फॉर एग्जाम्पल दिस ओनली, इफ यू सी, हो सकता है देयर कैन बी अ सिचुएशन इन विच दिस नंबर इज वेरी हाई इन द ट्री, करेक्ट, बट secondary consumers कम है. There can be a situation like this also, where this is less, this is more, but this is also less. So you can have a spindle-shaped pyramid of numbers. You can also have a spindle-shaped pyramid of numbers. That means your producers are the least. There are more number of primary consumers and secondary consumers लेकिन फिर से कम हो गए. So there can be a tree जिसमें कीड़े मकोड़े ज्यादा है, right? There are more, let's say, bugs and insects, but जिसमें birds भी again कम हो गए. Okay, so that will be a spindle-shaped pyramid of numbers. Please just write down spindle-shaped, आपको अपने आप याद आ जाएगा. Okay, now let's talk about pyramid of biomass. Pyramid of biomass is determined by collecting all organisms. Pyramid of biomass. Okay, by collecting all organisms. Pyramid of biomass is usually determined by collecting all organisms occupying each trophic level separately and measuring their dry weight occupying each trophic level separately and measuring their dry weight. Okay. Biomass is measured in grams per square meter. This is the unit of biomass. Okay, biomass is calculated in grams per square meter. Okay, now इसमें क्या हो रहा है? In the previous pyramid, we were counting the number of individuals. Okay, so counting is easy. In this case, we are calculating the dry weight of all the animals in the ecosystem or plants. So we are calculating the dry weight of all the producers in the ecosystem. We are calculating the dry weight of all the primary consumers in the ecosystem, then secondary consumers. So हम हर trophic level पे जो organisms आ रहे हैं, we are calculating their dry weight, okay, and then calculating the amount of biomass that is available in the ecosystem. So normally what would happen? The more the number of individuals, for example, अगर बहुत सारे पेड़ हैं तो उसका बायोमास भी बहुत ज्यादा होगा, वेट ज्यादा होगा, ठीक है. बट देयर कैन बी अ सिचुएशन वेयर नंबर्स बहुत ज्यादा है बट उसका वेट नहीं है, एंड दैट कैन हैपन इन एन aquatic ecosystem where first trophic level पे is included phytoplankton, small microscopic organisms which make their own food like algae. Okay, algae, if you count the numbers, it will be in millions. But if you calculate their dry weight, it will be very less. Okay, so a pyramid of biomass again can be both upright and inverted. In the case of an aquatic ecosystems, the producers, the numbers may be high, but the weight or the biomass is less. Similarly, the herbivores can be in the aquatic system can be less than the carnivores. हो सकता है बहुत बड़ी बड़ी carnivorous fish हैं उस aquatic ecosystem में, right? So the pyramid of biomass again can be both upright and inverted. Understood? Okay, please write down upward pyramid, upright pyramid of biomass, upright pyramid of biomass. For most ecosystems on land, the pyramid of biomass, for most ecosystems on land, the pyramid of biomass has a large base, of primary producers. For most ecosystems on land, the pyramid of biomass, okay, the pyramid of biomass has a large base of primary producers. मतलब जितने भी mostly terrestrial ecosystems में biomass of plants will be highest and succeeding trophic levels में biomass यानी कि उनका dry weight जो है वो कम होता जाएगा. हम water weight नहीं include करेंगे. We will not include water. We are talking about the actual weight which is there minus the water. Okay, so dry weight will keep on decreasing. But in an aquatic ecosystem, the biomass of the plants or the producers or the autotrophs will be much less compared to other succeeding trophic levels. Okay, So we have written for most ecosystems in land, the pyramid of biomass has a large base of primary producers, correct, with a smaller succeeding trophic levels. With smaller succeeding trophic levels. In contrast, in aquatic ecosystems, the pyramid of biomass may assume an inverted form. Okay. So just for your clarification, draw one triangle like this ताकि you don't forget in aquatic ecosystems. Here you can, let's say, write phytoplankton. Okay, here you can write herbivores, and then here you can write carnivores. And this is in a aquatic ecosystem, so that you are very clear that aquatic ecosystems में the pyramid of biomass can be inverted. Can be, again, जरूरी नहीं है हमेशा होगा, but it can be inverted. हो सकता है उस aquatic system में बहुत सारे पौधे भी हो, so in that case वो inverted नहीं होगा. Alright, it can be. Phytoplankton, herbivore, carnivore. क्या phytoplankton is a what? Spelling of phytoplankton. Plankton. हाँ जी. Spindle shaped. I'll explain it to you in the break. Okay. Those who have doubts, we'll discuss in the break. Okay, last pyramid and then we are taking a break. हाँ जी. हाँ यार जोर से बोलो. हाँ ठीक है. और फिर ब्रेक में मेरा जो भी प्रसाद बांट रहा था यहाँ दे देना. ओके. पिरामिड ऑफ एनर्जी. अब मुझे बताओ, नाउ टेल मी, पिरामिड ऑफ एनर्जी इन्वर्टेड कब होगा, किस सिस्टम इकोसिस्टम में होगा? डिकम्पोजर में. Decomposer is not an ecosystem. Like which ecosystem? कब होगा? कभी नहीं होगा. कैसे होगा? Energy is unidirectional. It never comes back. Whoever is eating whom is getting 10% of that energy. Pyramid of energy will never be inverted, come what may. Reason being that energy is unidirectional. Okay, energy is unidirectional. Okay. Pyramid of energy is always upright. Always upright. एनर्जी कभी भी सक्सीडिंग लेवल्स पे बढ़ नहीं सकती. इट हैज टू कम फ्रॉम डाउन ओनली. एंड इफ इट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम डाउन ओनली, दैट मीन्स some is being lost, some is being used, and only 10% is being transmitted to the next trophic level. चाहे aquatic ecosystem हो, चाहे terrestrial हो, चाहे grassland हो, चाहे forest हो, चाहे desert हो, कुछ भी हो, energy is always dissipated and only 10% is transferred to the next trophic level. Okay? तो कोई ऐसा system नहीं है जिसमें animals में plants से ज़्यादा energy होगी. That will never happen. All right? Now answer this question and take a break. What is the answer? One only one. That is pyramid of energy. It can never be inverted. Clear? Okay, take a break, 10 minutes. Chalo, jaldi se settle down. Okay, now you all understand that we live in an environment which is full of chemicals everywhere. Chemicals everywhere. In the food we eat, in the water we consume, in the cosmetics we use, the products, our detergents, everywhere. In the perfumes, aerosols, har tarike se we are surrounded by chemicals. Okay. Now what happens when we consume this chemical? Let's say there is one chemical, okay, which we are consuming on a very regular basis, inadvertently. हमें पता नहीं है. Okay. So, for example, let's talk about an aquatic ecosystem. Okay. In an aquatic system, there is a fish. Okay. Let's say in the first year of its life, fish consumed X amount of chemical. Okay. फिर second year आया, it consumed 2x amount of chemical. तो अब उसकी body में कितना chemical हो गया? 3x. Okay. It consumed 2x more. Then again, third year of its life, it consumed another 2x. तो कितना हो गया? 5x. Okay. So over a period of time, this fish is accumulating a lot of chemical in its body. This is known as bioaccumulation. Okay, bioaccumulation. That means over a period of time, if the chemical keeps on getting accumulated in our body, that is bioaccumulation. Now consider an example where there is an ecosystem. Okay, there is one fish. Okay, ये fish है. Let's say इसमें X amount of chemical है. Okay, this fish is eaten by a bigger fish. Okay, this big fish, let's say, has eaten 2 fish over a period of time. Okay, this is another fish. So how much chemical would come into that big fish? 2x. Then let's say there is another bigger fish which is eating 3 such fish. Okay. We are talking about one time period, a reference time period है. Okay, let's say 1 day. Okay. Now it is eating 3 such fish. उसने 3 ऐसी fish खाई जिनमें इतना chemical content है. How much would be the chemical content here? 6x. So what is happening here? With every increase in trophic level, ये trophic level बढ़ रहा है, right? Because इसको ये खा रही है, इसको ये खा रही है, correct? This is a, let's say this is a primary consumer, this will be a secondary consumer, and this will be a tertiary consumer. All right. With time, this fish is accumulating all of the chemicals that are present in the food chain. This process is known as biomagnification. So over a period of time, एक organism में the amount of chemical that is there in one organism increases because of the food chain. नीचे वाले जितना है उनका भी accumulate होता जाएगा, plus whatever it is eating on its own, that directly जो उसको chemical मिल रहा है, that is also coming there, and on account of eating other organisms, that is also entering the body. So biomagnification is the process of amplification of a chemical in a species on account of the food chain, एंड बायो अक्यूमुलेशन मीन्स एक पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गेनिज्म में ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम जो भी फर्स्ट ईयर, सेकेंड ईयर, थर्ड ईयर जो भी उसने अक्यूमुलेट किया है, दैट इज नोन एज बायो अक्यूमुलेशन. यू अंडरस्टूड दिस? यस, वो मैं बताती हूं. इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द केमिकल. इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द केमिकल. A chemical for this to happen should have certain properties. हर केमिकल ट्रांसफर नहीं होता है. ओके, व्हाई? बिकॉज हम कुछ खाते हैं, कुछ हमारी बॉडी भी डाइजेस्ट करती है, कुछ उसको ब्रेक डाउन करती है इनटू इट्स कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट पार्ट्स. सो अ केमिकल शुड हैव सर्टेन प्रॉपर्टीज दैट इट कैन बी ट्रांसफर्ड टू द नेक्स्ट स्पीशीज. फर्स्ट इज दैट इट शुड बी फैट सॉल्यूबल. अगर वो वाटर सॉल्यूबल केमिकल होगा तो वो आपके यूरिन में पास हो जाएगा. इट शुड बी फैट सॉल्यूबल. सो आपकी बॉडी में, किसी भी ऑर्गेनिज्म की बॉडी में जो फैट है, टिश्यू है, उसमें जाके वो स्टे करे. ओके. सेकेंड इज इट शुड बी लॉन्ग लिव्ड. दैट मीन्स उसकी अपने आप डिकम्पोज होना ना शुरू हो जाए. इट शुड बी परसिस्टेंट. जो उसका फॉर्म है उसी फॉर्म में वो रहे ओवर अ लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. Okay, and third is it should be biologically active. It should be able to transfer from one organism to another. Okay, so these are the two concepts. Just see this. Oh, sorry. This is bioaccumulation. Over a period of time, this is time. Over a period of time, उस fish में वो chemical की quantity कितनी बढ़ रही है, that is bioaccumulation. And biomagnification means on account of a food chain, by eating लास्ट ट्रोफिक लेवल्स में वो और जितनी सब्सिक्वेंट ट्रोफिक लेवल्स है उसमें उतनी केमिकल की क्वांटिटी बढ़ती जाएगी. दैट इज बायो मैग्निफिकेशन. ओके, सो प्लीज राइट डाउन. बायो अक्यूमुलेशन refers to a process. Bioaccumulation refers to a process of accumulation of chemicals in an organism. Bioaccumulation is a process of accumulation of chemicals in an organism if the rate of intake exceeds the rate of excretion. Okay, biomagnification is the increase in concentration of these chemicals in each organism Biomagnification is the increase in concentration of these chemicals in each organism up the food chain. यानी कि subsequent levels में वो magnify हो रहा है. And accumulate means एक organism में वो जमा होता जा रहा है. Okay, this is clear? Okay. Now, what are the characteristics that make a chemical, that allow a chemical to be either bioaccumulated or biomagnified. The chemical must be, write down the characteristics for a chemical to be bioaccumulated, the characteristics for a chemical to be bioaccumulated or biomagnified, for a chemical to be bioaccumulated or biomagnified are, number one, it should be long lived. It should be long lived. That means the chemical should persist. The chemical should be long lived. It should persist in the environment for long. That means अगर environment में ही मान लो वो chemical अपने आप ही, लेट से पानी में जो aquatic ecosystem में पानी में वो chemical है वो अपने आप ही अगर break down होए जा रहा है तो obviously fish उसको consume करेगी, उससे पहले ही वो break down हो जाएगा. वो केमिकल इतना स्ट्रांग होना चाहिए, इट शुड परसिस्ट इन द aquatic ecosystem for longer periods so that the fish is constantly taking in its exact form. Okay, वो break down नहीं हो रहा है. So it should persist in the environment for a long time. Second is it should be mobile. It should be mobile because if the chemical stays in one place, तो देर इज अ चांस, मान लो देर इज अ फॉरेस्ट और उसके एक पैच में, फॉरेस्ट के एक पैच में वो केमिकल है, वो पड़ा है तो पड़ा है, उसको थोड़े बहुत ऑर्गेनिजम्स जो वहां आके जिन्होंने उसको ले लिया उनको हार्म किया, बट इट इज नॉट रीचिंग टू द अदर ऑर्गेनिजम्स, राइट. अ केमिकल विच शुड बी बायोअक्यूमुलेटेड और विच शुड हैज टू बी बायोमैग्निफाइड शुड बी मोबाइल, कि वो आसानी से उस एनवायरमेंट में स्प्रेड हो जाए. ऑलराइट, सो इट शुड बी मोबाइल. Third is it should be fat soluble. It should be fat soluble so that it is not excreted by the organisms. So that it is not excreted by the organism. And fourth is it should be biologically active. It should be biologically active. That means उसको कुछ harm तो करना चाहिए ना. It should cause some harm and it should be biologically active means, for example, if a mother is taking that chemical, okay, and if she is breastfeeding a child, that means biologically active chemical can go from the mother to the child through the feed, and that should happen. Otherwise it will cause no harm. Okay, that means it should be easily transferable. बायोलॉजिकली एक्टिव, दैट मीन्स अगर बायोलॉजिकली एक्टिव नहीं होगा तो वो बॉडी में बायोमैग्निफाई तो हो जाएगा बट इट वोंट कॉज एनी प्रॉब्लम्स. इट शुड कॉज सम प्रॉब्लम ऑल्सो. दैट इज वाई वी शुड बी मोर कंसर्न्ड अबाउट इट. ओके, बायोलॉजिकली एक्टिव मीन्स फॉर एग्जाम्पल इट विल एंटर द मदर्स मिल्क. ऑलराइट, example of such chemical is DDT. DDT has now been banned mostly in all over the places, all over the world. The full form of DDT is dichloro diphenyl trichloroethane. Ban of DDT, same reason, that it was getting accumulated in people and it is very harmful for health. Okay, it's a very persistent compound. And also because lot of the insects have now become immune to this also. अब DDT उन पे असर भी नहीं करता है जैसे पहले करता था. They have adapted. Written? Everyone's written? Shall we move forward? Done? Okay. Answer this question. Online students also answer this question. Not correct पूछा है. B, how many say B? 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 हाँ. Ecological pyramids, do they incorporate a food web? That means, are you able to see each organism? वो कहाँ is it going there? What all is eating and all? You are only able to see it in a food chain type manner because you are able to see each organism in one trophic level. Correct? उसको आप multiple trophic levels पे तो नहीं view कर पा रहे. The correct answer to this is C. In an aquatic ecosystem, the pyramid of biomass is always upright is wrong. It can be inverted also. All right. Now answer this question. Just put down this flap. One only? Small, thin. फैट ही नहीं होगा उसमें तो बेचारा क्या बायो एक्यूमुलेट करेगा. ठीक है. सो fat, thin, short lived, we need long lived organisms. Okay, will bioaccumulate more than they will not. A fatty person will bioaccumulate more than a thinner person. Okay, so second is wrong and first statement is correct. Answer is A, one only. How many of you have read about this in school? I have. और बाकी सबने नहीं पढ़ा? पढ़ा है ना? आता है ना सबको? नहीं आता? तो स्कूल में क्या पढ़ा था? भूल गए? So let's revise, draw this in your notebooks. Okay, done? I am assuming done. All right. So let's start. Let's start with mutualism. What happens in mutualism? Okay. सबसे पहले इसका नाम बताओ. नीमो. फाइंडिंग नीमो. यस, नीमो का एक्चुअल नाम है क्लाउन फिश. ओके. And what is the organism it is in a symbiotic relationship with? Sea anemone. Sea anemone. Okay, Nemo से ही start करते हैं. ठीक है. So mutualism is a relationship in which both the parties are benefiting. Okay, both are enjoying each other's company. All right. Now what happens in mutualism? For example, in this case, okay, sea anemone is a stationary organism. It does not swim. It does not move around. Okay, it is a stationary organism. Sea fish, हमारी जो clown fish है, this in turn makes a, it usually stays, it uses the tentacles, ये नीचे दिख रहा है उसके tentacles like sea anemone के, it uses this as a habitat to stay. All right. Now, what is the benefit that fish is getting from sea anemone? उसे घर मिल गया, shelter. ठीक है, it has found a home. And what is the sea anemone getting from the fish? Because the sea anemone is stationary, it is not able to go here and there in the oceanic system. See, the fish in turn थोड़ा सा कहीं से food लेके आई, थोड़ा सा खाया, थोड़ा सा छोड़ दिया, थोड़ा excrete कर दिया. So the availability of nutrients for the sea anemone increases because of the presence of this fish, as opposed to the fact that if sea anemone were alone, तो उसको maybe उतना nutrition नहीं मिलता. Okay, so they are in a mutual relationship. ये तो बताने की जरूरत नहीं है. Bees and flowers. What do bees get from flowers? Nectar. Okay, they get nectar. And what do flowers get from bees? Pollination, right? Flowers get the service of pollination. Pollination everybody understands. Is there anyone who doesn't understand pollination? सबको पता है? Sure? Okay. Then another example is humans and gut bacteria. What is gut? Alimentary canal. Very good. But for those who don't know, gut means this part of your body starting right from the mouth to the anus. That entire lining, पूरा digestive tract जो है तुम्हारा, that is the gut. That is your gut. Okay. Increasingly, the doctors and the scientists around the world are realizing that the microbiome, that means the bacteria and all the microorganisms which live in our gut, are very important for human health. They are not only important for digestion and absorption, but they are also important for immunity. Why? If you are eating and it is not getting absorbed in the body, what is the point? तुम कितने भी nutritious diet खा लो, if your body is not absorbing it through microorganisms, then there's no point. Okay, so a healthy gut microbiome. Microbiome means biome क्या होता है? Biome we did yesterday. So microorganisms का जो realm है microbiome, that microbiome should be very healthy. Okay, and that microbiome is in a mutual relationship with our gut. What do we get from the microbiome? The ability to absorb nutrients, process food. Okay, the microbiomes are processing food and helping us absorb it. And what do the microbiota, what does the microbiota get? यानी कि जो microorganisms है उनको क्या मिल रहा है? They are getting food and shelter because they are living inside our gut. So it is a mutual relationship. Understood everybody? हमारी gut में जो microorganisms हैं, bacteria and all, they are benefiting. Example दो. Give me an example of a bacteria living in our gut. E. coli, Escherichia coli. Okay, E. coli. ऐसे बस ऐसे देख लो. E. Escherichia full form होता है E. coli bacteria. Okay, this is living in our gut. All right. Now, another example is ants and aphids. Ants and aphids. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting relationship. Okay. Aphids क्या होता है? Aphids are these small white color insects that you see. You see here also. The small whiter ones are aphids. And the big one is ant. Ant तो सबको पता होगा, right? So this is the ant and this is the aphid. Okay. The aphids have the ability to produce a sweet liquid. This, ये जो droplets दिख रही हैं, this sweet liquid which is known as honeydew. So the aphids have the ability to produce this sweet liquid known as honeydew. Okay. Ants like to have this honeydew. Okay. And what do aphids get in return? Aphids को क्या मिल रहा है? Guess करो. That's right. Look at the size. The aphids are so small, and अगर ant उनके ऊपर crawl कर रही है, the aphids are getting protection from other prey, like birds and other insects. Okay, so aphids get a protection from the ants. This is also a example of a mutual relationship. Ants and aphids. Now come to this lichen. Lichen is a symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi. We know algae is a autotroph, okay, and fungi on the other hand is a heterotroph. So fungi क्या है? ऐसा looking organism है, okay? उसकी filaments है. These are its filaments. In the filaments, the algae, small green algae, goes and starts living inside the filaments. It looks like this. Is this visible? 1 second. Is this visible? This is how it looks in reality, lichen. It is a symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi. Fungi के बीच में जाके algae, छोटी छोटी green algae रहने लग जाती है, and then it starts looking green in color. Okay, so what does the algae get? It gets a place to stay, shelter. Okay, and what does the fungi get? Food, because algae is an autotroph. Okay, and now come to this example. This is a very interesting example. This is the pitcher plant and the woolly bat. What is a pitcher plant? It is an insectivorous plant. How does it function? उड़ के insects catch करता है. How does it trap insects? ये ढक्कन है उसका, ढक्कन खुल जाता है. So what happens? This is the Nepenthes or the pincher plant. इसमें क्या होता है? There is the inside of this tunnel-like structure is very slippery. Okay, so it attracts mosquitoes. Mosquitoes come and sit here at the edge, and sometimes they think that I can go and take out the nectar. They fall inside, and it's very slippery. So वो slip करके नीचे तक पहुंच जाता है insect यहाँ तक. And gradually, धीरे and धीरे, obviously the plant does not have teeth. It's not going to chew the insect. Gradually, it starts releasing some juices and enzymes, because of which the insects starts getting dissolved. Okay, and then that is absorbed by the plant. This is how the pitcher plant functions. Now, sometimes what happens is pitcher plant बुढ़ा हो जाता है. Okay, it grows old. Its functions are reduced. So it is not able to capture as many insects as it would have. The woolly bat uses this pitcher plant as a home, as a shelter, okay? And the pitcher plant in turn gets food, nitrogen-rich food from the woolly bat in the form of its excreta, okay? In the form of its excreta. So the woolly bat gets shelter and the pitcher plant gets food. This is also an example of a mutualism relationship. Please just write down the names of all these examples. Yeah, I'll be giving out the PPTs for the class today. Online students are also asking. Just write down the names and pictures तुम्हें अपने आप याद आ जाएंगी once you've seen them. Humans and gut bacteria, bees and flowers, clownfish and sea anemone, woolly bat and pitcher plant, lichen is a symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi, and ants and aphids, aphids, aphids. There's no water here. ड्रॉ तो नहीं कर रहे ना? ऐसे लगे हुए सब इतना लिखने, इतना टाइम क्यों लग रहा है? मुझे लगा कोई ड्रॉ करने बैठ गए. In environment classes, there will be more of pictures because you can only see and retain through pictures. You can understand better through pictures. Okay, this is not a static theoretical class. Environment में score करना है तो जितनी pictures देख सकते हो देखो, कभी नहीं भूलेगा, you'll never forget. As opposed to ants and aphids, अगर मैं तुम्हें फोटो नहीं दिखाती और सिर्फ ant aphid बोलती, it would not have made sense in your mind. You would not have understood the scale at which we are talking कि ant कितनी बड़ी है और aphid कितना बड़ा है, right? So it's important to see pictures. Done? हो गया? चलो. Let's come to the next level, commensalism. Do you want me to dictate the definitions of these? Mutualism और इसका? चलो एक लाइन लिख लो mutualism का. Mutualism is a type of symbiosis. Mutualism is a type of symbiosis in which two or more species benefit from each other. Mutualism is a type of symbiosis in which two or more species benefit from each other. Okay. Okay. Next, commensalism. Now, mutualism में both are benefiting. Commensalism, one is benefiting और दूसरे को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. I don't care. Okay? Doesn't matter. As simple as that. ठीक है? So, in commensalism, first example is cattle egret. इस bird का नाम है cattle egret, and then there is cattle. Okay? Now what is happening is cattle अपना चल रही है मस्ती में, grass में, ऊपर नीचे धूम धड़ाका करते हुए. Okay? The cattle is moving in the grass, and on account of its movement, it displaces some portions of the grass. थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे, थोड़ा soil हिला, कुछ हुआ. Okay? And because of the movement of the cattle, insects which are relatively unexposed are exposed, and the cattle egret इसकी हो गई पार्टी. ठीक है? And cow को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा, doesn't matter, because it's just doing its normal job. This is an example of commensalism. Okay? Cattle egret and cattle or cow or whatever. Okay? Cow चल रही है, on account of its movement, the grass is tipsy-turvy, and because of which insects are exposed, which were earlier not visible, and because of that, cattle egret gets food, and the cattle itself remains unaffected. All right? Oh, yes. क्यों कैट को क्या कैटल को क्या फायदा हो रहा है? हाँ, that can also be there. That can also be there. But that is not true for all bird species. In certain bird species, the cattle, this bird can sit on top of the cow and it can eat the small insects or worms or whatever which are on the cow. But that would happen when it is a different species and sitting on top of the cattle. Okay? That's not true for all species. All right? Next is epiphytes. Epiphytes. Now, epiphytes are a different species of plant which use another plant or tree as a substrate to grow. Normally, plants would grow in soil. Okay? These plants grow on other plants. Okay? But the benefit they are deriving is they are getting nutrition, right? But the other plant is unharmed or unaffected. They are deriving nutrition, but that is not at the cost of the bigger tree, because the other species is very big. Okay? And this plant is relatively does not, ऐसा नहीं कि ये parasite है कि वो उसका सारा nutrition suck कर जाएगा. That's not the case. It does it at a very small level, so the other tree and the bigger tree is unaffected. This is an example of epiphytes. The biggest example of epiphytes is orchids. हैव यू सीन ऑर्किड्स? कभी किसी को दिए या किसी से मिले? No? Okay. So orchids are flowers which grow on the trunk of trees like this. Okay? Anyone from Northeast? Northeast, have you seen orchids? Yes. So orchids grow on the trunk of trees. I'll show you pictures abhi. Okay? These type of plants are known as epiphytes. Okay? And another example of that is army ants. Army ants. Okay? Army ants are a group of ants. These are essentially female ants which are infertile. They are like soldiers. Okay? एक species है. Army ant is a proper species of ants. These ants have a tendency to, they go in line like all other ants and they go towards the source of food. So birds which cannot see food directly follow these ants to get access to food. Okay? So maybe the bird is benefiting from the ants, that on account of following these army ants, it is getting food. But the army ants themselves do not have any benefit from this association. Okay? Many such species are known as ant followers. Birds की बहुत सारी species are known as ant followers. And see this, about 300 species of animals, including 29 species of birds, depend on army ants for their survival. This is the single largest association of animals to a species in the world. This is the largest example कि एक maximum number of species are dependent on one species, that is the ants, for their survival. This is the largest example in the world. That is how important army ants are. They are important for the survival of 29 species of birds and about 300 species of animals. इतने सारे जानवर ants पे भरोसे चल रहे हैं कि वो जहां जाएगी there is food. Okay? This is also an example of commensalism. Noted? You've written the examples? लिख लो जल्दी से. Cattle egret and cattle epiphytes. एक bracket में लिख लो example orchids. And then you can write birds and army ants. नहीं, एंट का फूड नहीं खाया, इट इज जस्ट फॉलोइंग टू द सोर्स ऑफ फूड, बट सारा फूड नहीं खाया उसका. It is just following. It gives them an idea about the source of food. Okay? It doesn't take away from the ant. Okay? All right? This is a UPSC question, 2014. Answer it. Zoom. Zoom होगा तो will you be able to read it? इजी. अब तो पढ़ के तो इजी है. जब आया था तब बहुत लोगों को नहीं आता था. ओके. Lichen is an symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi. All right, 2014. Okay. Now I'll show you. This is how orchids are. This is orchids. This is an orchid. It's growing on the trunk of a big tree. Okay, so it's not that much dependent. ऐसा नहीं है, it doesn't act like a parasite कि उसका सारा nutrition ले लेगा. That does not happen. Okay, this is an example of an epiphyte. This is also an example of an epiphyte. This plant belongs to the family of bromeliad. Bromeliads. Bromeliads are usually epiphytes. And the biggest example, most commonly known example of bromeliad is pineapple. Pineapple is also a part of bromeliad family. Okay, and bromeliads are usually epiphytes. And these are your army ants. This is how army ants look. Okay, these are army ants. Okay, and what is this? Banyan tree, okay. Banyan tree is also sometimes considered as an epiphyte because uski roots jati hain, okay, and then a fresh tree grows from there. So you can say the two trees are associated. Sometimes banyan tree also starts as a epiphyte. All right, this is also an example. Now, amensalism. Amensalism. Commensalism का you want the definition? लिख लो, फिर बोलोगे लिखवाया नहीं. लिख लो. Commensalism is a symbiotic relationship. Commensalism is a symbiotic relationship where one organism benefits without harming the other. लिख लिया? सबने लिखा हुआ है. All right, let's move. Amensalism. अब पहली definition लिख लो before I give you the examples. Write down. A symbiotic relationship in which one species is harmed or inhibited while the other is unaffected. In which one species is harmed or inhibited while the other is unaffected. Shall we start? Okay. Simple है. एक कुछ ऐसा कर रहा है जिससे दूसरे को हार्म हो रहा है, ओके, एंड जो कर रहा है उसको यूजुअली कोई हार्म नहीं हो रहा है. ठीक है, इट्स एज सिंपल एज दैट. सो इन दिस फर्स्ट एग्जांपल जो सबसे बेसिक है वो ये है कि सपोज देयर इज अ बैक्टीरिया कॉल्ड पेनिसिलियम. पेनिसिलियम इज व्हाट? इज अ नेम ऑफ अ बैक्टीरिया. नो, इट्स अ बैक्टीरिया. It produces the antibiotic penicillin. Okay, it produces the antibiotic penicillin, and this is a harmful thing for other bacteria. Okay, this is a harmful thing for other bacteria. All right, penicillin produces antibiotic. Penicillium produces antibiotic penicillin, which inhibits the growth of bacteria. Okay. Second example is a walnut tree, अखरोट का पेड़. Okay, walnut tree has a tendency to release a chemical in the soil. The name of the chemical is juglone. Juglone. Okay, Juglone. 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 Okay, juglone into the soil, and this chemical in turn inhibits the growth of nearby plants. This chemical in turn inhibits the growth of nearby plants. Okay, and simple example, when elephants are walking, they disrupt the nests and burrows of other rodents. That means elephant is not affected, but the rats or the rodents or their nests or burrows are affected. This is also an example of amensalism. Okay. Deforestation is not between two species. We are talking about relationship between two species. Deforestation is an anthropogenic activity. Okay. नो, पैरासाइट का अलग. पैरासिटिज्म इज इसमें क्या है, एक अनअफेक्टेड है. पैरासिटिज्म में वन इज बेनिफिटेड, द अदर इज हार्म्ड. ओके, पैरासाइट में जो पैरासाइट है उसको तो फायदा हो रहा है, उसको न्यूट्रिशन मिल रहा है, बट जो होस्ट है दैट इज गेटिंग हार्म्ड. इन दिस केस वन इज नेगेटिवली अफेक्टेड बट द अदर इज अनअफेक्टेड, उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है. ओके. All right, done. So when you look at the table, if you see amensalism, one is negative, the other is 0. But in the case of parasitism, one is negative, the other is positive. Okay, that is the difference. All right, next is predation. ये तो मैं क्या ही बताऊं, ठीक है, इसमें क्या समझाना है? Okay, predation is a relationship between the predator and the prey species. Predator means बड़े वाला, शिकारी, and prey means shikar. That means the one which is eaten. Okay, predator means the one that is eating and prey means the one that is eaten. ऐसे याद कर लो, prey मतलब food. Okay, food, prey is equal to food, predator is equal to eater. Because sometimes a lot of students have a tendency to get confused. All right, predation. Okay. Predators are always in a higher trophic level than their prey, obviously, food chain, correct? Predators will always be in a higher trophic level than their food chain. Okay, clear? This penicillium wala sabko clear hai ki nahi hai? I think there is still a doubt. Online students are also asking. This is the bacteria. This is the bacteria. Okay, and penicillium releases an antibiotic, penicillin, which kills this bacteria. Okay, this is a fungi. This is a fungi, but it releases an antibiotic and this is the bacteria. Clear hai na? Okay. Done with predation? Not technically. You can say yes, but generally prey, predator ये सब animal to animal के context में बोलते हैं. ऐसा नहीं कि किसी ने उठा के plant खा लिया या fruit खा लिया तो it is predation. Okay, generally it is considered in the case of animal to animal. All right, done. चले. Parasitism. Parasitism. Parasitism is a symbiotic relationship. Parasitism is a symbiotic relationship in which one organism benefits while the other is harmed. One organism benefits while the other is harmed. Okay, for example, dogs. How many of you have ever had a pet dog or whatever? So you would know dogs and cats, they usually have these ticks. It's like lice in human beings, right? Okay, so these ticks, they feed on the dog. So the dog is harmed whereas the ticks are benefited. Okay, similarly in human beings, if there are worms, okay, so hookworm and humans, the worm is benefited but the human is harmed. Okay, aphids and plants, we just saw, right? That means aphids are drawing nutrition from the plants, the plant is gone. Okay, so this is an example of parasitism. Cuckoo in other birds' nest. Cuckoo in other birds' nest. किसके nest में डालता है cuckoo अपना? Crow. Okay, so what it is doing is, it is laying its egg in the nest of the crow. तो वो cuckoo के bird को तो फायदा हो गया, because he gets home and family and everybody. Okay, but what is the harm to the crow's family? There is more competition for resources. अब वो बेचारा क्रो एक इंसेक्ट लेके आएगा तो वो कितनों के मुंह में डाले? Correct? I wish they could do that. All right. So that means it increases the competition for the crow's family. So that is why competition for resources, that is why they are harmed. Okay. Barnacles and whales. Now barnacles are small crustaceans. Crustaceans are a type of organisms जिनकी category में crabs भी आते हैं. That means they have a hard outer shell but they have soft, something slimy, soft kind of structure inside. So they look like this. This is barnacles. Barnacles and whales. Now some people categorize barnacles and whales in the parasitism category. But in your NCERT and other books, barnacles and whales are classified under commensalism. That means it is usually established that barnacles को तो फायदा हो जाता है because they stick to the body of the whales. ये देखो ये stick हुआ है. It is stuck to the body of the whale. It gets to move around. It gets nutrition. It gets shelter. Everything. But it is now established that barnacles usually do not cause any problem to the whales. So when you are writing this down, barnacles and whales, include this under commensalism because that is what your NCERT also does. Okay, barnacles and whales. This is how barnacles look like on the body of whales. They're stuck on other turtles, not tortoise. Tortoise is on land. Okay, but usually they are stuck on whales because whales have very large bodies and surfaces. Okay. So these are examples of barley. And of course, similar example is leeches and humans. How many of you have ever gone on treks? Trekking पे कौन-कौन गया है? ये पीछे वाले सारे trekking पे गए हैं. Good, very nice. So have you ever been to like a wet and forest type of place जहाँ पे leeches होती हैं? So what did you carry along with yourself to counter that? Salt and आटे का mixture. So that when the leech gets onto your body, because they have this kind of a hook like a stung, and they, this attach to your body. So when you have to remove the leech, if you directly remove it with your hand, then the sting will remain inside. So that is why it is suggested you carry atta and salt or maybe salt mixture, and then you apply it so that the sting is released, and then you can take out the leech. So trekking people will know what I'm talking about. All right, and those of you who have not, जब लबासना में जाओगे, you will be taken on treks, so be prepared. Okay, clear? This is done. Parasitism. एक और कैटेगरी थोड़ी सी जबरदस्ती की, ठीक है? This is neutralism. That means when two species are occupying an ecosystem, but they have nothing to do with each other, no relationship at all. Some people consider this, some people don't. This is known as neutralism. So for example, in the Gobi Desert, which is a cold desert, there is also the Bactrian camel. This is the Bactrian camel, which is a double-humped camel. It has a double hump. Is this found in India? Yes. It is found in Ladakh, in Nubra Valley. Have you been there? Who answered? You've been there? Dekha hai? Good. Okay. So Ladakh, Nubra Valley, this is found in Ladakh. And UPSC has asked a question in one statement that the double-humped camel is only found in India. And the answer was not correct because it is also found in Afghanistan and such places. All right. So this is Bactrian camel. Spelling I'll write down. Yeah, likha hai na? Acha, Bactrian camel is there. All right. And another example is long-tailed tadpole. They have nothing to do with each other. Okay. So you can consider this a relationship. You cannot consider this as a relationship. Neutralism definition is when they don't have any relationship with each other. No relationship. Is this clear? Any doubt? Anybody? ये तो fun classes हैं. असली पढ़ाई तो तुम इकोनॉमिक्स पॉलिटी ये सब में, एनवायरमेंट इज फन क्लासेस, you see these things around, you know it. Okay. And the interesting part is that fun classes ka composition in prelims exam is almost 20-25%. Okay, which again people are not able to answer, because when UPSC throws questions like what is lichen, then everybody goes for a toss. Chalo, answer karo. One and 2 are correct. 1 and 3, first is also correct. Commensalism is when one is benefited, the other is unaffected. तो वो तो अगर उसको सप्रेस कर रहे दूसरे को, तो बेनिफिट कहां से हुआ? डोंट गेट कंफ्यूज्ड बिटवीन कमेंसलिज्म एंड अमेंसलिज्म. ओके, ध्यान रखना इनका. द आंसर इज C3 only. We will be doing this topic in the next class.